Okay, so I'm starting the kombucha brewing process, and I brew 4 gallons at a time. That's because I brew for our family and another family. But whatever it is, you're going to take half of the volume that you're going to brew. Usually people do 2 gallon at a time, especially with the system that I recommend. So you'll take half of that amount. I'm going to take 2 gallons, maybe 2.5 gallons. You would take 1 gallon. So you just get a nice stainless steel pot and you fill your water up. Okay, then you take your pot and you boil it. That's all there is to it. You bring it to a rolling boil before you put the tea in. All right, now the water is boiling, or has boiled. I just took it off of the boil, and we now need to add the tea. So we usually get bulk tea because it's the most economical way to do it, and we do organic Irish breakfast or English breakfast. Any black tea will work just fine, or green tea you can mix in too. For a 2-gallon batch, you're going to use 1/3 of a cup. And I use these hop strainer bags, which I get from a brewing supply company. They make a great big tea bag. And since I do 4 gallons, I'm going to do 2/3 of a cup. There's that. There's my tea bag, the bag with the tea. And I drop it in the water like that. And let it sit for 20 minutes. Alright, now we've just let the tea steep for about 20 minutes, and then all we really have to do is take the tea bag out, squeeze that a little bit, set it there. What I do is now I just let it cool on its own. I usually do that overnight then, so that it's ready for me to go the next morning. You also could add ice. You can add sugar right now. Some people do that because it's easier to dissolve it now when it's warm, but frankly I don't. I do that all tomorrow. Alright, so we've got the tea that we just brewed upstairs. Now we've brought it down, and sorry I've got a little background noise with the water softener. Let's hope that this works. These are my 2 kombucha fermenters, essentially. They each have a heating pad on them. Ideally we keep the kombucha right around 80 degrees for its fermentation. I also use beer brewing bottling equipment, small versions of it. And this is highly, highly recommended, so I will also post my instruction sheet on how to do this, and all of this type of equipment is on there. Otherwise, you end up trying to do it with funnels, and not recommended. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is get our scobies out of here. SCOBY stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast, and if you've never seen one of these, be prepared. They're a little bit goofy looking, maybe a little bit gross looking, who knows. So open this up, reach on in here, and we've got lots of SCOBY. Let me move my thing over there. There we go. There it is. There's the SCOBY. You see here that it actually makes several different layers. If you're still up for doing this really isn't that big of a deal, but it does certainly look different than stuff we usually deal with. I always come prepared with something to rinse my fingers off with in between. Here's the second batch. Reach in there. And get that SCOBY out as well. Okay, now we're ready to bottle, and I have several bottles set out here. I bottle for a friend. We're going to stick her kombucha in there. Here are the ones that I use. As you see, you can use pretty much any old bottle that you have around, and here's how I like to do the bottling system. This is a siphon. Actually, I like to do a stir. Nice and bubbly, as you can see. Put that in there. And here we go. So the siphon allows for basically gravity feed filling of these bottles. I'm getting a lot of foam here, not sure why. No, it's going to be extra lively. And then with these types of bottling equipment, you can just pull it up and it stops. So that's pretty much the process for the next 15 minutes here, is just filling these different bottles. And then my next segment will be actually refilling the fermenters. See you in a second. Okay, so we have bottled all of the kombucha now, and the next thing we get to do is refill the fermenters. So I've already put the tea, which is just that straight black tea that I made before, in the fermenters. Now we need to feed the bacteria and yeast, and we feed them with sugar. Now yes, sugar is not something that necessarily is a healthy part of the diet, but when you're feeding bacteria so they can turn it into healthy things for you, I say that's a good call. So for each 2 gallons, you use 3 cups of sugar. I am getting a little low on my sugar here. You can see it's really precise, but right around 3 cups of sugar, and then you give it a good stir. This is the part that sometimes people do this when the tea is still hot, so that it just dissolves in easier. I've never found any issue with just giving it a real good stir, even when it's at room temperature. And then setting in the scobies, which I'll get down to these ones. I'm gonna just put basically 2 of those back in. The other 2 I will keep in a container right over here so that I can give them away to people. So after that, we just need to fill up the water again, which is as simple as taking your water, fill it up, this is just a tea towel basically, and then I put a rubber band, which I have lost. There it is. I put a rubber band around the lip to keep the fruit flies out, because fruit flies do love this stuff. And then I will tie the heater back around it, and that's that. You leave it sit for another 2 weeks, and you've got another batch of kombucha when you're done.